Okay. All right. So the Academy for Rising Educators. What can I say that has not already been said? Well, there we go. This was a picture. I think I did mention that this is a picture of our first graduating class. I just finished up in June of last year. The graduation was at the Langston Hughes Cultural and Arts Center, and it was a joyous occasion. There were a lot of people in that first class who were the first in their families to make that walk across that stage. And so there was a lot of meaning for a lot of people at that event. So what is ARE? ARE was created in 2018 to address a major inequity gap in public education in Washington State. The low percentage of people of color in the ranks of K-12 teachers. This program offers candidates a 6-quarter associate's arts degree, officially for now, with a focus on education and social justice. Graduates will have the option to transfer directly to teaching programs at Seattle U, City U, and Central Washington, as well as UW. Like I mentioned earlier. ARE is tuition free and offers strong support services for students, leading to a 90% retention rate. And so ARE is a high expectation, high support program. And we draw somewhat from a somewhat non-traditional candidate pool. I'll talk a little bit about that later. ARE is open to all students. Seattle Central College and Seattle Public Schools actively recruit and encourage students of color to apply. And I believe, so this is our third cohort that just started in fall. I believe it's like ratios, the demographics have been well into like 90% of each cohort have been students of color. So we've had good fortune in attracting a diverse pool of candidates. Our mission statement: the Academy for Rising Educators produces diverse, homegrown practitioners who are culturally responsive, employ anti-racist, relationship-based, student-centered pedagogy, and engage in critical community discourse. I don't know, but I'm not sure how many teacher prep programs have explicit language like anti-racist, culturally responsive, relationship-based, student-centered in the mission statement. And that's on purpose because, one of the strengths I feel of the program is that, so let's just use Seattle U as an example. So Seattle U's College of Education has a group of professors who are there to teach the classes. Now, I'm not, trying to talk trash about Seattle U professors. All I'm saying is that if there happens to be a professor who does not do such a great job in kind of working with students, that professor may have tenure and is probably not going anywhere and is going to continue to teach in the program. With ARE, since this is a program that we've built from the ground up, we're not hamstrung by a situation like a Seattle U, where we are kind of handpicking our teachers from our instructors from around the community, and in the event that one of them does not work out, then we are not obligated to bring them back under any kind of tenure arrangement. And so it's been a process, but we're kind of slowly building this roster of instructors who, as I go around and try to make connections with people who are interested in possibly teaching, one of the things that I go through with them is this mission statement, because it is important for me, for us as a program, to have instructors who are going to model the exact things that are being talked about in that mission statement, so that they can model that kind of teaching for the candidates so that the candidates can carry that modeling into their own classroom when they're teaching kids, students, and young people. Okay. The program has gotten a little bit of pub for not being very old, or being relatively young, I guess I should say. In 2020, Seattle Central won the Eduardo Padron Award for Institutional Transformation. And in giving this award, it's saying that Seattle Central is recognized for its high level of commitment to social and economic inclusion, evidenced by the establishment of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, ongoing work for the Diversity Action Plan, and their commitment to access to education, providing flexible pathways for students from all situations and backgrounds to be prepared for careers and lives as active and engaged citizens. The result of this work has been establishing a wide variety of programs in partnership with local schools and community-based organizations, including the Seattle Promise Program and the Academy for Rising Educators. These programs have already demonstrated a measurable impact on Seattle Central College students and the local community. Thank you very much. And you can also see that there was an article recently in the Seattle Times that was also making this point. And also, it's important to understand that we are in the context of a severe shortage of teachers, not just in Seattle, but really in schools across the country. And so bodies are needed, but not just bodies, qualified, properly trained and skilled bodies are needed. So one thing that I really want to make a point about is the language that we use in the program. So in the program, the philosophy of the program is that right now, we have sympathetic destroyers. So it would be sympathetic destroyers versus warm demanders. And so what do I mean by that? Well, our belief is that currently schools are overrun with what we call sympathetic destroyers. Now, what is a sympathetic destroyer? So a sympathetic destroyer would be a person, they come in all political persuasions, they come in all colors, from all socioeconomic and religious backgrounds. But it is someone who is not necessarily overtly hostile towards the students that they're teaching. In fact, they may be sympathetic toward the students that they're teaching and working with. But the problem is that they are either unwilling or unable to make connections with students to the extent that allows for effective teaching and learning to happen. And so, like I said, it's not that they are of ill will. It's just that, and they maybe genuinely feel bad about not being able to make those connections and not being able to steer these students who they're charged and paid to work with towards more positive outcomes. So those would be sympathetic destroyers. And like I said, all races, all shapes, sizes, colors, all kind of backgrounds. There's not necessarily a model or a template for what a sympathetic destroyer looks like. It's just that in Seattle, the percentage of teachers who are white is just so skewed and so high that a lot of those sympathetic destroyers happen to be white teachers. Okay, so if we balance that off with warm demanders, what is a warm demander? Well, it is what ARE hopes to produce. So warm demanders create classroom climates of emotional warmth, consistently and clearly demand high quality academic performance, spend time establishing positive interpersonal relationships between themselves and students and among students, extend their relationships with and caring for students beyond the classroom, and communicate with students through nonverbal cues such as smiles, gentle touch, teasing, and establishing a kinesthetic feeling of closeness. Sorry about that. Okay. And so when we have a lot of sympathetic destroyers, as well as if you mix in some unsympathetic destroyers, um, we have a resulting dynamic that is less than ideal. And it is something that I've really come to really see more clearly in my work with this program. This is the idea of academic trauma. So what is academic trauma? Well, academic trauma comes from the impact of adverse, violent, ostracizing, and stigmatizing events experienced by individuals in a classroom setting. These events leave lasting impacts on students that they carry forward into their post-secondary education. It is experienced by Black students due to systemic racism. It is exacerbated by historical and intergenerational trauma, as well as the ongoing trauma of being Black or BIPOC in America. So it's talking about post-secondary education here, but we know that it starts much earlier, very early, in fact. So early that there have been, issues within Seattle schools of disproportionate discipline, particularly amongst African-American students. And so I wrote my dissertation on this disproportionate discipline of Black students in Seattle public schools. And at the time, this was in the mid 2000s when I did that study. But at the time, that was focusing on grades 4 through 8, because that was, the area in which the achievement gap starts to reveal itself. But in the time since then, it's come out that kids, so the stuff that I did was on middle school students being suspended disproportionately. In the time since, data has come out that has shown Black preschool students are being suspended and expelled disproportionately. So that academic trauma is starting at a very young age. And so, and also on top of that, it mentions that this issue being intergenerational. When I did that study, it indicated that this issue of disproportionate discipline in Seattle schools had been going on at least since the 1970s. So what we're talking about here is that intergenerational trauma of people of color, specifically of Black families, as it relates to their experiences in Seattle public schools. So academic trauma can present in post-secondary education or in any classroom in several ways. Hyper-focused on grades as opposed to learning. Defensiveness, not being able to take constructive criticism, withdrawal, emotional lability, lack of insight, external locus of control, underdeveloped thinking skills, and being a dependent learner. Now, part of this really kind of speaks to how the program is growing as we're kind of taking each year. Because one thing that we're now, given the levels of trauma, and there have been some candidates in ARE that have really kind of had struggles with this academic trauma. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But in thinking about anxiety, past trauma, and depression as it relates sometimes to some students' experiences in education, we're now considering as a program whether we need to have a specific course that dives into and talks about academic trauma and healing, giving teachers tools to work with students, because again, that's not something that's all that often discussed, at least not until recently. with regard to student experiences and how they process those experiences, and what positive or possibly negative kind of pieces of that experience they take with them. And so we have the idea of trauma-informed practices kind of leads with that idea of we're recognizing that there is trauma here. So how can we address it? How can we unpack it? However, I was recently introduced to, and this is what I was talking earlier about how the program is kind of growing as we learn more and as we have more experiences with more different students. Recently introduced to the idea of healing-centered engagement. And the idea of healing-centered engagement plays off of trauma-informed practices, because taking the trauma approach, students can start to feel like, well, you know, I'm more than my trauma. I'm not just you know, the trauma-informed practice seems to focus so much on my trauma that perhaps it's not letting me get past versus a healing-centered engagement, which acknowledges the trauma but does not necessarily put the trauma at the center of movement forward. And I think that's a pretty important distinction, because we've had students, you know, as we've tried to work through trauma with some of the students and take these trauma-informed approaches, there have been students who have been like, you know, I'm more than the trauma. It feels like, this is a student saying, it feels like we're focusing on that all the time. And so hearing what the students are saying and being responsive to that has us going a little bit more and learning more about the healing-centered engagement approach. So here's what I was saying about how trauma sometimes shows up. So in the summer, so let's see, we started, I'm gonna have to count backwards now, summer of 21, summer of 2019. So I think the summer of 2019 was our first cohort, fall 2019. So we did a summer bridge kind of orientation for that group. We did not do one in 2020 because of COVID. We did a kind of a hybrid one last year for cohort 3. And so I went in to talk to the group, to the cohort. And I'm someone who feels like there is an immense amount of important and useful data that we can gather from this program, not only from the students, but also from instructors about, you know, how can we make the program stronger. So I figured I'd do a little experiment with but an exercise, let's call it that, with this group, with the third cohort. And I made a little kind of intake survey. So I asked a question like, you know, if you could describe your educational journey to this point in 3 words, what would those 3 words be? And why would you use those 3 words? And then I asked, you know, as a student, what is a strength you bring to the program? And then I asked, as a student, what is a challenge? In this quiz or in this survey, I worded it poorly. I said, what is a weakness? So I was corrected on that. So the next survey that I do won't say weakness, it'll say challenge. But this is a picture of one of the surveys that I took, or that the students took. And here's one of the answers that we got back. As a student, what is a strength you bring to ARE? And the student was saying, I know what it is like to be held back a year and have to work hard to catch up. And so, you know, you feel like there could be some trauma there or attached to that experience. So then I was saying that the other question was what's something that you struggle with? And So I had everybody fill out their survey. And then I had, after, maybe 10 minutes to do the survey, then I had them get into like small groups for a few minutes, maybe like 5-10 minutes, to talk about amongst themselves in a small group about what their responses were. And then we came back to the large group. And I just kind of opened the floor and was just saying, is there anything that anybody wants to say about any of the answers that they gave on any of the questions or any of the items in the survey? And so this one guy, he's black, he's probably black male, he's probably about 30 or so, raises his hand. And he says, in response to the question, as a student, what is a weakness you bring, or a challenge you bring to ARE? I do not like to read. And I remember there was a kind of a little kind of ripple through the room, because that's not necessarily something that you would expect someone who is entering a teacher education program to say. But when he said it, the first thing that I thought was, there has to be some trauma attached to that. But so that's what I thought. But then the first thing that I said in response to that was, wow, I appreciate you making yourself vulnerable like that. And I remember telling him that, okay, now that you've shared that, our job as our responsibility as a program is to help you unpack that, first of all, and then to give you the tools to help other young people unpack that. Because there are a lot of people out there that struggle with reading and are uncomfortable with reading. And it may not necessarily be that they don't like it, it's just that they're not confident. And so this young man, I didn't push too much, but I said that to him, that it was our job to help with that. And that he's not alone. There are lots of people who struggle in that way. But then later on in the week, because he clearly wasn't really ready to necessarily get into it right then, but later on in the week, he went back to it and he talked about it. He was in tears as he talked about how when he was, maybe it was like 4th or 5th grade, it was a private school here in Seattle. He was the only Black kid in his class. And the teacher had a thing for making students read out loud, and he was not a strong reader, and he was teased mercilessly. And the teacher did nothing about it, nothing at all. And you think about it, that means that this young person has been carrying around his trauma for decades. And how often does he talk about it? How often does he think about it? I don't know, but it took a lot. I feel like it took, and I was appreciative of the fact that he was willing to share that. And I am proud that we have the kind of program that attracts non-traditional candidates like that, because one of the things that I told him was that, that is one of the things that's going to make you such a great teacher, because you have empathy and compassion for students who are struggling in that way, in ways that other teachers who are 4.0 students or that kind of thing may not. And that's another thing that I love about our program, is a lot of these teacher ed programs are GPA based. You have to have a certain GPA to get in. Well, we don't have that. And I think that it makes for a great diversity of experience in the candidates that we attract to the program. And I haven't even mentioned, I did mention it earlier, but I haven't even mentioned the fact that it's free. It's tuition free. And our thing was, how can we knock down as many barriers to becoming a teacher as possible? And knowing that cost is one of them. It is our intention and our mission to make sure that nobody leaves our program with any kind of student debt, any kind of loan, anything like that. And then the last thing that I'll just say about the variety of candidates is that, I've done a little bit of work with the Washington State Police Academy, the Criminal Justice Training Commission, which is located in Burien, just a little bit south of the airport. And I've had many conversations up there with people who wonder why they can't get a greater pool of diverse candidates to come and be police officers. And one of the things that I say is that if you have had an adversarial relationship with something, then it probably makes it less likely you will choose that area as your profession or your job when you get older. If young Black males have traditionally had an adversarial relationship with the police, guess what? They're probably not going to be police officers when they grow up. Probably not going to want to do that. If you've had a young person who has had an adversarial relationship with school and with teachers, they may not be teachers. They may not want to be teachers, but there are some that do want to be teachers. And so helping them through not only learning how to teach the basics, the 3 R's and all of that, the social justice and kind of socio-political kind of recognition of the inequities that exist in schools is central to what we do. Everything that we do, everything that teachers, the instructors do in the classes is based around the things that I was talking about in the mission statement, around that responsiveness, around it being student-centered, around it being relationship-based. And so hopefully the unusual nature of our program will turn out unusual teachers, but only unusual in the sense that they come out ready, aware, and prepared to push back against some of the inequities that they will face within the institution of education. So that's the presentation. That's the basics about ARE. Are there any questions from the person who's in the room?
Yeah, I was gonna say, since I'm the only person here, I might as well just unmute and just have a conversation. So
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify a few things. So I mean, it's been 20 plus years since I've been in school, so I'm kind of starting over. And after high school, I started working, and I've been with Kaiser Permanente for 22 years now. So I didn't do any type of higher education other than high school. So for me, coming or looking at a program like this, and I'm going to make an appointment and speak with the advisor and everything. But as far as, I guess I'm kind of happy when you spoke about, you know, the GPA and different things. It's not like you have to be some particular scholar to get into this program. So someone like myself, it sounds like it's a program I could enter into pretty quickly. Would you agree? Okay.
I would agree. What's your credit situation like? Are you like approaching an AA, or are you where just a couple credits, or where are you kind of on the credit scale?
There's no credits. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. I'm starting from I'm just starting.
Yeah, no,
So,
then you come right in with the whichever cohort you would be a part of. So yeah, that's and so so I guess part of it is, if you're, you know, because most of the candidates, not all of them, but most of them are already employed in Seattle public schools, where the program is starting to actually attract people from different districts. I think up until this point, just about all the cohort members of the first 3 have been Seattle public school employees. Although I think in cohort 3, we've got a couple from Renton. So there's starting to be people from surrounding school districts to come in. But so most of them currently work in schools, but not all of them. So that wouldn't be necessarily a requirement.
yeah,
and so like you work in a school to go through the program.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with me is I work for Kaiser, but I work in a school. So I run one of the teen health centers at Franklin, and now I'm at Franklin and Interagency running both of those clinics.
Okay.
So, you know, I've been at Franklin since 2007, and just doing different things as far as they've allowed me to run groups, you know, with the students and things like that. And I was actually coming to this presentation for the human services program. And then when I heard Chuck, I was like, no, I'm going to that program right there. And I think, because I don't know if Richard Dobbs is somebody who's involved with this. Is that name familiar? Because I know
Hmm.
he had came and he was talking about a program, and one of our coaches, Craig Jackson, entered a program, and I'm not
He is
sure if
that
this
that
is
Craig is in. Craig was in cohort 1.
okay. Okay, so I knew it sounded familiar.
Yep.
Okay, so that's great. So it sounds like you complete 4 years and you are now a
So
teacher.
part of when we started this program, part of my concern, one of my concerns was, okay, if we're have this super supportive environment at Central for 2 years, then they have to transfer somewhere else that may be more, how would you say, traditional, less supportive
Mhm.
necessarily for students of color. And that'd be probably, and I really don't like that, but the fact that we're expanding it to a BA means they never have to leave. So that really, it makes me feel a lot better. Just the only place that you will, if you were to go into the program, would transfer to would be after you finish your BA to whatever certification program you would want to go to. So it cuts down on the moving around between institutions before you get
Mhm.
your degree.
Okay. And so as of right now, there's a new cohort that starts every year.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Cohort 4 is pretty much solidified. I think there's just about every cohort that's come through. There's been about 30 students,
Okay.
and there's already starting to. If I've heard it right, there's already starting to be not an official cohort list for cohort 5, but people who are kind of making plans to start the program not in fall, not this fall, but in fall 2023. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and another thing I just want to say real quick is the cohort model is so important. And that's one thing that we were very intentional about when we set the program up. And when the graduation, just about everybody came up and spoke, at least for a moment, all the graduates. And I think just about all of them mentioned how grateful they were for their cohort and for the support and for to be able to have community and going through it, you know what I'm saying, with people who are also going through the same thing and being able to lean on each other. And it's been one of the strengths of the program, I think, is the kind of almost family-like bond a lot of the members of the cohorts have formed so far. And so, you know, we're committed to not only working with these students while they're here, but also supporting them because, you know, so often teachers of color end up leaving the profession, you know, after not too long because a lot of times they feel isolated and alone and not supported. So we want to do what we can as a program to continue to support graduates once they're through the program and keep them connected to the program and coming back and speaking to candidates who are coming through and those kinds of things. So it's a lot, but I'm honored and privileged to be in a position to be able to help build it into something that we all hope will make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great program. And so, right now, would you say that is there like a cap on how many can enter the program? I know you said there's usually like 30
Yeah, no,
students.
I think the only cap would be if it got to be too much more than 30, because if it's more than like 32 or 33, if it gets up to like 35, 36, 37, then you start having to think about offering 2 sections of a class. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Okay.
if we were to like have 40 people, you couldn't put 40 people into one English class. You would have to make 2 classes of 20.
Hmm.
So, but we haven't had that situation. Like I said, we've been right around 30. So there's not really a hard cap. The number usually kind of ends up just being right around there by itself. Some people who are committed like earlier, you know, may have something come up and have to push it back, or maybe, you know, so I guess that long-winded answer is to say there's not really a hard cap.
Okay. And then is this offered just in the evening or?
So yeah, we do we're doing a virtual hybrid schedule right now. which means that students go to class, go to Zoom class 3 nights a week for about 2.5 to 3 hours. And then the rest is online. So it's a full schedule. You know what I'm saying? It's a full load. It's 3 classes. It's a full-time load.
Okay.
But the classes being in the evening because obviously a lot of the candidates work during the day.
Right.
Trying to make it schedule friendly.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation. Like, I'm really excited to learn more about this. I'm guessing I could probably even just look this up on the website.
Yes, you can.
Wow.
And in fact, why don't I do this? I will put in the chat. I'll put the website in the chat there.
Okay.
And there's and so you'll see some contact info. Imani Dunn, you'll see as you scroll down, is the program manager at Seattle Central. So she'll be the one that you want to contact about further questions on cohort placement and just the steps that you'd need to do if you want to learn more.
Did it take me out of there? I bet it did. Okay. Here we go. All righty.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was
All right.
very informative. I appreciate it.
Of course. Your name is, how you pronounce your name?
Oh, it's Ronica.
Ronica. Okay. I'm Dr.
Yes.
Abe, and hope to see you at one of these summer bridge orientations one time.
Yes. I plan on doing it. So I'll meet you.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thanks again.
Okay. Have a good one.
You too.